under the checkered flag at the Full Earth Workshop. A nice little quick build for us today. You know, I was just thinking it's kind of difficult to really do a good display of old classic slot cars. We're talking the really cool ones like the Cox slot cars from the 60s. So I found this crazy thing called a Dyna-Mo. This was made by a company back in the 60s to be able to test out your slot cars. Kind of like a Dyna-Mo for a big car. The Dyna-Mo Test Block. When I saw a picture of it, I thought, oh, it's cool. It's made of steel. Well, when it arrived, it was a little less than what I'd thought. It's actually made of rather inexpensive vacuum mold plastic, and over the years, it's seen a lot of use. And so there's some brakes and so forth in it. So I thought we would firm this thing up and make it look really cool so we could display a slot car on it. Sometimes when I look online with people that have really big slot car displays, the displays themselves are a little less than impressive. Looks like a 2x4 that's been routed to put the slot in. Not so great. So we're going to try to take a little classic piece of kit here and make it kind of cool. We're going to start out with the designer's friend. We're talking 3mm thick styrene, which solves just about every problem there is in the world. What we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to stiffen it up because it's really, really weak and there are cracks and so forth. It just does not look good. We're going to do that by gluing on a little square of this to the bottom, and you won't believe how much it stiffens the whole object. We just kind of slather super glue on the bottom and put it all together and cross our fingers, and sure enough, it's going to work just fine. Let's put a little bit of kicker on it to harden everything up and make it beautiful. And you'll notice, man, not bad at all. Very stiff. It'll really keep this thing from breaking in the future. Well, it still doesn't look great, but we're off to a good start. Let's get down to the dirty work. We're going to pull out the old trusty Bestine. This stuff is amazing because it cleans really well. It is a solvent, and it just kind of disappears out of nowhere. Now, we want to make sure that we maintain a few things. First of all, there's this metallic tape that is on that's used to put electricity into the brushes. But this old sandpaper, couldn't figure out what it was for. What in the world would this sandpaper be for? Well, I finally worked it out. You turn the slot car on backwards and you can true the tires on that little section. So it came to me probably a day after I peeled these things off, so we'll be replacing some sandpaper into that spot. Now, to cover up all that nastiness where the plastic has broken and little flakes are missing away, I'm going to take a little bit of leftover styrene in black. I really didn't have long enough to do it the proper way, which is to do little miter seams, but we're going to make this thing look fine with what I have available. I purchased this thing on eBay for about, I think it was $20, which probably is too much for this thing. But it's going to be a pretty cool conversation piece when I put it up on the shelf. And as you see, we'll make this thing look as close to new as possible. And it's going to be a lot more sturdy, even though it's still kind of messed up. We're going to take some 1200 sandpaper, and this is where we start to do all of the cleanup work. We're going to stay away from the pad prints that are up on the top. You see where it says Dyna-Mo Test Stand? Well, we're going to make sure that is protected and just take away some of the goo and some of the imperfections of the surface that are around it. It will disappear as soon as we start to paint this thing, as you see. One of the things that makes this project kind of fun too is I'm using whatever I have on hand to fix this thing up. And I cut it kind of loosely because this material expands when you glue to it. I'm talking about the vacuum form plastic there. So I'm just kind of piecing the little parts together, doing a quick little sanding around this, and I think you're going to be amazed at how nice something that was so beat up can look kind of cool when it's done. For you guys that are real craftsmen about it, this is really a good way to sand your corners. What you do is you create a bevel on each one of the corners that is approximately the same size. Then you go back and you just round off that big bevel, and you'll be amazed at how much all of your radiuses match. You can even check it with a radius template. Well, here's the method to our madness. I'm going to use some blue painting masking tape to cover up those little brush areas. We're talking about that tape that is metallic for the brushes. We're going to put it over those so when we spray it with the clear coat, there's still going to be some conductivity there. Now, here's the crazy thing. Some of you long-term modelers are going to know about this, but we're going to be using Pledge floor wax. Yeah, it's amazing stuff, and it's incredibly cheap. I mean, you buy a bottle of this stuff, it'll probably last you the rest of your life. It's inexpensive, and it gives everything a beautiful gloss. One more cool thing about Pledge floor care, you can just pour it right into your airbrush and spray it without thinning it down. The first time you spray it, you're going to think, man, I'm putting on too much, or it's not flowing well, it's just not doing what I think it's going to do. Just wait a little bit. It tends to be self-smoothing. Look at the glass shine it gives, especially when you consider what we started with. All right, so take a look. This is what we finish with, and 24 hours later, look how beautifully glossy this is. Now remember, it was pretty chewed up when we started. I looked in one of my junk drawers and found some of these. These are furniture glides, and I'll put a few of these on the bottom. Now that we have a proper bottom put into this thing with styrene, and that's just going to make sure it just adds that little bit of to get it done. Let's peel off the tape. So now we can be assured that if we ever want to use it, it'll still work. The conductivity hasn't been ruined by the overspray. So let's take a look at the final product. It's reinforced. Still looks vintage, but looks much, much nicer. All it really needs now is a finished slot car, and we'll get to that real soon. We'll see you next week.